I'm Kathy Smith, the director of the Fox Rothschild Center for Law and Society here at Community College of Philadelphia. Today's Perspective interview is conducted by David Travaskis, who is an adjunct faculty member here at Community College and is the pro bono counsel for the Pennsylvania Bar Association. He's also a member of the Center's advisory board. In today's interview, David speaks to the Honorable Sheila Wood Skipper. Judge Wood Skipper currently sits as the President Judge of the Court of Common Pleas, 1st Judicial District of Pennsylvania, and presides over the recently created 1st Judicial District Mental Health Court.
Welcome to the Fox Rothschild Center for Law and Society Perspectives series on CCP TV, the educational channel of the Community College of Philadelphia. My name is David Travaskis, and I'm an adjunct professor in the paralegal studies here at Community College. With me today is the President Judge of the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas, Judge Sheila Wood Skipper. It's nice to have you with us, Judge.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, and we're going to start off with, I think, a question that anybody who's watching this is going to ask. What is a President Judge?
Well, the President Judge on the Court of Common Pleas is elected by her peers, and I was elected unanimously by my peers in November. The role of the President Judge is really to be the ambassador for the courts, and that means to be the public face, to go out to do community events, court events, and then there are also administrative roles of the President's Judge, which includes providing orders for such things as election, court, assigning judges for that. If there's a need for an out-of-county judge, it would be my role to request that from the Supreme Court. I would also confirm assignments of judges that are made by the administrative judges and make sure that the Supreme Court also confirms those as well. And many other administrative judges that include overseeing the law library, which we have in City Hall, room 600, overseeing the mail room, and some limited budgetary responsibilities. As you may or may not know, the role of the President Judge has changed over the years, and some of these tasks, particularly the budgetary tasks, have now been assigned to the chair of the Administrative Governing Board that is chaired by the Administrative Judge for the Trial Division. But there are so many other things and so many other roles that a President Judge can take over, the President Judge does, that it's a busy assignment. And sometimes it's a matter of it changes every day, and you just sort of roll with the punches.
Now, does that mean that you don't actually ever sit as a real judge hearing cases anymore?
Well, to the contrary. As you may or may not know, I preside over the Mental Health Court, which was created under my watch back in 2009. And so I have decided to continue presiding over that judge because it really is something, over that court, because it really is something that it is near and dear to my heart. And so I do that. I also do a variety of miscellaneous items such as Post-Conviction Relief Act petitions. I do violations of probation hearings, and I may do miscellaneous other types of petitions or motions that may be filed. I'll also be involved in any election court challenges and nominating petition challenges. So there is an opportunity to remain in court, and I like to keep that opportunity available because I think being in the midst also gives you the opportunity to see what actually is happening in court, to see issues as they arise in the beginning and not have to always react and put out fires as a result of things happening.
It's interesting. You talked about this mental health court, which you started when you were an administrative judge.
Well, as supervising judge.
Supervising judge.
Correct.
Now, what is that mental health court? Because I bet a lot of people listening won't know what that is.
So our mental health court is a reentry court, and it was designed to help to reduce recidivism, and to stop the revolving doors of incarceration. So we look for individuals who are either serving county sentences or waiting sentences, and we look to provide them with structured programming and treatment so that they are released from prison into structured programming and treatment. We have community treatment teams who monitor and supervise them. They have designated probation officers, and they see me in court for status listings regularly. The whole effort is that if we can get them on their medication, get them to continue with their medication, to remain in treatment for their mental health issues, they will be able to better monitor their mental health and to stop committing crimes and stay out of jail.
It's interesting. We have talked on this show about the veterans courts and some of the other specialty courts. So this is one of the newer specialty courts for the city.
It is newer, and it's different because veterans court, drug treatment courts are all diversionary courts, meaning if things go well, most of the time the charges are going to be dismissed. In our court, we're dealing with convicted felons, so the charges are going to be there. But what we seek to do is wrap around these supportive services so that perhaps they won't commit additional charges. And we've evolved to the point now where we have about 5 different tracks of mental health courts, depending on the level of care that's needed. We have a veterans track. We have a track that deals with individuals who have been found legally incompetent to proceed. And we work with those individuals to get them back into competency status, and then they either resolve their cases in mental health court or we send them back out to trial or for sentencing back to their original judge. So we have grown from probably in 2009 processing 100, 150 cases to at the end of last year processing close to 3,500 cases.
Wow, 3,500 cases. Now, the Philadelphia court system, the First Judicial District that you head as President Judge, has a pretty big caseload.
Yes.
3,500, I'm sure sounds like a huge number to our audience, but how many total cases get handled through the First Judicial District each year?
So if you're talking about criminal cases, we probably get in maybe 15,000 new cases each year. So that just adds to whatever inventory is already in the cases, in the court system. Civil cases obviously are a different creature. We've created many programs in the civil program to deal with the civil matters, including the day forward, day backward programs. So those numbers are a bit different, and I don't have quite the figures for those right now, but we are working to make sure, even with the mortgage foreclosure program, that we're able to get from inception to disposition a lot earlier. And I think with the mortgage foreclosure program, we're down to 12 to 18 months.
Wow. I think it's amazing. Most people just think you file something or you get arrested and you go to court, and that's all the process. But it sounds like there's so much more going on.
There really is, because not only once something is filed, then there are a number of different types of pretrial hearings that have to be held. We have in all of our courts now some type of e-filing system. Criminal actually was the last program to have e-filing, and we're finishing up a pilot program and hoping to go into permanent filing for e-filing. And it has been a welcome addition because as a lawyer, you can sit home in your pajamas and file a motion, and lawyers seem to like that.
Well, they can also track what's happening with their clients.
Absolutely.
They can track what's happening with the case.
Absolutely.
And lay people can also do that, can't
Absolutely. And they can come to the counter if they don't have a computer at home. They will be helped both on the criminal and the civil side. The staff will assist them in making sure that the e-filing is completed correctly.
Okay. Now, as President Judge, you get elected by your fellow judges.
Yes.
And there's over 100 judges in the Court of Common Pleas, aren't there?
90.
90.
Correct.
All right.
You're down a little.
But so you are a judge before you get to be President Judge.
Absolutely.
And then our judges in Pennsylvania are elected. When did you first become a judge?
I was first appointed to the bench, and back in 1998, I was appointed to fill a vacant slot created by a retired judge. And of course, under Pennsylvania law, I have to then run for election, and I ran for election in 1999 for a 10-year term. And then I was retained in 2009.
Now, did you grow up as a little girl always wanting to be a judge?
I did not. As a matter of fact, I grew up not even thinking about wanting to do anything in criminal law or become a lawyer. And it was something that sort of came as I continued going through school. And I think my interest really began to peak when I was in high school, and I participated in the Law Explorers Post for law. And that was actually run at that time by Judge Lockman and Michael Reed from Pepper Hamilton. And so they were instrumental in sort of opening my eyes to the possibility of law. I had no lawyers in my family. As a matter of fact, I think I was the first individual to graduate from college, so I didn't have that type of background. So I always kept that in the back of my mind. And as I went on to school at the University of Pennsylvania, I said, okay, maybe I do want to be a lawyer. But as I continued through Penn, I actually graduated from Penn a semester early. And I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, whether I wanted to continue with my interest in law or do something else. And so when I graduated that December, a semester early, I didn't really find the job that interested me or a career path that interested me. And so I said, okay, I might as well go to law school. And so I applied and did go to law school that following fall.
And you went to Temple Law School?
I went to Temple Law School as an evening student because at that time I still didn't really have a good job. So finances were always an issue for me. And I was working as a paralegal by then. And I couldn't afford to quit my job. So I worked full time and went to law school at night. I actually got married between my first and second year of law school and had my first son between my third and fourth year.
So you were very busy during law school.
I was very busy. But not only that, I also was president of my first year evening class. I was involved in moot court. And so I was never an uninvolved student, because one of the things my mother, as we were growing up, raised is you have to be involved. So she kept us involved in community activities. And so I was very active as a young person, as a teenager, and certainly during my college and my law school days.
Now, when you're done at Temple in '83, where do you start looking for work?
I look anywhere I can find, and quite frankly, I had a very difficult time finding a job. I had decent grades, but I wasn't at the top of the class. So I ended up with a clerkship with Judge Charles Wright, and I was the first female clerk he ever had. And I ended up staying there for 3 years. And it was a very interesting experience because in many ways, Judge Wright was very old school in terms of what his expectations were and what he thought women should be doing at that time. But it was a very beneficial clerkship for me. One, it was very conducive to my family lifestyle because I had a young child, and so I didn't have to worry about billable hours. But it was a good writing experience and a good opportunity to really hone those skills for the future.
And with really a great champion. The judge is one of those names in Philadelphia legal history.
Absolutely.
So a great mentor.
Absolutely.
So after 3 years with the judge, where did you go?
And then I went on to the district attorney's office where I served as a prosecutor for about 11 and a half years. For my last 5 years in the DA's office, I was in a homicide unit, just trying solely homicide matters.
Now, you started with Castile,
yes.
Our now Chief Justice
I
Castile
did.
Was the district attorney, but mostly you worked under Lynn Abraham
Correct.
as DA.
Correct.
And when you went to homicide, were there a lot of women in the homicide department?
There were not. There may have been at that time one other. There had been one other black female, but she moved out of homicide very quickly and went on to some other great career path. And so when I came in, there may have been 2 to maybe 3, now that I'm thinking about it. There were 3, including me at the time. And it was, it was a very, very small unit, and so the expectations were always high about what you could and could not do in a homicide unit. And I always tell the story, one of my experiences in homicide, I was trying a homicide matter, and at that time I was pregnant with my second child. And matter of fact, I was like 9 months pregnant. And I was doing a closing argument. And during the course of the closing argument, this baby kicked, and it kicked very awkwardly, so much that it caused me to sort of like jump and hold my belly a little bit. And I could see the eyes of the jurors who were very, very concerned that I was contracting.
You were having your baby right during the closing.
Exactly. And so that was the quickest verdict I ever had. I think they went back, batted their eyes, and said, we're coming out. She needs to get to the hospital. But, you know, it's always, you know, I planned some things, you know, I planned very well. Like my first child I knew had to be during the summer between my third and fourth year. And there was 10 years between that child and my next child. But I'm very interested in my career, but I'm also a family person, so I put family first.
Mm-hmm. Now, working in the homicide unit, that is really the top level of the district attorney's office.
It is.
The best attorneys are there. But it also must be very intense as a mother. You have 3 sons.
Yes.
And as a mother, you're dealing mostly with men.
Yes.
And you're really doing the harshest sentences that we have in our justice system.
Absolutely.
You're trying to get them. How did that feel? I mean, did you ever have cases that made you ponder whether this was the right path for you?
I don't know that it made me ponder in that way, because I really thought I was doing a public service. I think we as citizens have the right to be free of individuals who are wreaking havoc in our streets, who are killing individuals for sometimes very silly and stupid reasons. So I thought that really was a service that our community deserved. If I felt or found that there was a case that I did not quite feel was an appropriate matter because the evidence wasn't there, or maybe the detectives got it wrong, there would be a discussion about that, and there would be a decision made as to whether we should move forward on that case. Because while you're seeking justice, which is what we always are seeking, justice has to be fair. And we know that every person that's arrested is not necessarily guilty of the crime, or may not be able to be proven guilty of that crime. So I took my job and my obligations very seriously, and my obligation was to seek justice.
No, that is interesting. Do you think that made you a tougher mother with your own boys growing up?
They might think so, but the thing is I try very hard not to take my work home with me, in the sense of having reactions with the family about what was happening in court. So while, of course, I had to take work home to do work because it was always very, very busy, I tried not to internalize it to the point where I had to have a reaction with my children or with my husband about what was going on. My husband at the time was, and still is, a federal defender. And people often ask, well, how do you two manage that type of relationship? I said, you know, the funny thing is we rarely talked about our work, because our biggest conversation was, who's going to pick the kids up? Who's going to take them to the soccer game or the basketball game? Whose schedule will allow all of those things to happen? So the work conversation actually took a back seat to all of that.
And maybe it did also help that he was in a federal system and you were in the state
yes,
system.
Well, he started in the state system.
Oh, he did start in the state
system? But by
system?
then he had gone to federal.
And he started as a public defender in Philadelphia?
Yes.
So you guys were one of those Adam's rib kind of law families.
But we did not meet in court. Matter of fact, we met at a Super Bowl party, and I had never seen him in court, nor had he seen I. So it was interesting, right?
No, that is neat. Now, Governor Ridge appoints you to the bench, which I guess is a great thing, because as a DA, you can't really be involved in politics.
That's correct.
And I know you had been involved in the community in a lot of different ways, so you had been thinking about being a judge.
I had been thinking about it over a period of time, because as you rise to the highest level in the DA's office, being the homicide unit, really the next track really is to go into something in administration or supervising, something of that nature. And I didn't know whether the opportunities were going to be available for that. And I had to take a good look as to whether or not this is something I wanted to continue to do for the rest of my life. And then there were people in the community who started pushing me to say, you know, why don't you think about being a judge? And I said, sounds like an interesting idea. And so I started asking questions and asking around, recognizing that I could not become involved in politics as a district attorney, and knowing that others who took that route was maybe because they had been working for the party or had relationships with certain politicians that would help that along. So it would mean for me that I'd have to quit my job and then make those relationships and move forward. And I decided, one, that I was not in the financial position to do that, and two, my name had gotten out there because of my many involvements in things, and I was asked to not step into the race at that time. So I didn't, and a year later or so I was appointed.
So, and now you get the appointment, you're a judge, but you do have to run in the general
Correct.
election.
Correct.
And you run, Philadelphia is a heavily Democratic city.
It is.
You run as a Democrat.
Correct.
But you were appointed by a Republican governor.
That's correct. But you know, maybe as many of these things that are done, there is cooperation from both parties, particularly an appointment. And you know, they get together and say, all right, if you appoint this one, then I need your support because I need to appoint the next one. And so it works that way in many ways. And running as a sitting judge was very challenging because I would be in court all day. And at that point in time, I was in the felony waiver program, which are trials that are by the judge without the benefit of a jury. And I would have very long days in court and then would have to travel all over the city to different ward meetings, different community events, and then get home very late at night, come back to court the next morning. I often say it was, even for my family, some of the things that I think I lost as a result of that run. My son was a senior in high school during that time, and I really felt that I missed his whole senior year because my focus was on winning the election. And although, you know, I was there for him when I could be, I felt that there were many activities that I couldn't be involved in with him. And so there are things that you can't get back. And that's one of the things that, you know, I always reflect upon, how much did I give up that year to take this seat. Of course, you know, he was very proud of me, and I can remember him and my husband running around putting posters up for the election. And so I'm proud of him for doing that as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, having been appointed and also almost immediately getting in the election experience, do you have any feel about the value of those two processes? Pennsylvania is one of the last states with elected judges, and you know, the argument always is that people who look like you get elected, they wouldn't be appointed, but you were appointed.
Right.
And so do you have any feeling, and I know that's a political hot...
It is a political hot question, but here's my feeling about that. I do believe that what an elected judge does for the system is it gives the community, the citizens, the opportunity to choose and to select. I do think they need to be better educated and they need to pay more attention to the individuals they are electing as judges. But I think it would be a disservice to take that away from the electorate. It also is a benefit to the judge because going around to all of the different wards and all of the communities, the judges become familiar with the communities and the issues that are involved. And so when they see these communities or these issues or problems from a particular community in court, they're aware. I mean, they know, for instance, where the Northeast is. I mean, if you lived in Southwest Philly, you may not necessarily know all the areas in the community of the Northeast. And that's what being an elected judge does, because you're obligated to make these runs around the city.
Now, you really didn't have a problem with that because you grew up in the city. You went to
Yes.
elementary school, middle school,
Correct.
girls' high school,
Yes.
and then Penn and Temple.
Exactly.
Then worked, you know, for the judge and as a DA. So now you are a judge yourself. What's the biggest difference from being a DA and being a judge?
Because now you're not an advocate for one side or the other. Your role really is to make sure that there's a fair and just trial, to make sure that the playing field is even for all parties, and understand that you're no longer the advocate.
Does it take a while for everybody to trust you that you'll do that when you come out of the DA's office and become a judge? Do they think you'll be a hanging judge?
I think most people do, and then I think they learn. I mean, so you'll get really scenarios where they're testing you, testing the waters to see where you're going to fall and where you're going to land. And what you really find, though, that as a judge, your philosophy of judging, your whole thought process may change from year 1 to year 10. And that's all because of experience and the knowledge base that you gain. And so, you know, the testing probably goes on for a while, but I think people begin to recognize or realize that, yes, you're going to be a fair judge, you're going to follow the law, and you're going to give what you believe to be an appropriate sentence.
And that actually is a pretty good philosophy of being a judge right there.
That's it.
Is there something else that guides you when you sit as a judge? What is sort of your mindset when you're there? I mean, you're up on the bench, you're in a robe, you've got sort of an aura about you. How do you keep your mind in process as you listen to everything that's going on in the court?
I think if you gauge or if you just recognize what your role is and understand that if you want to be respected, you must respect those who appear before you. I think sometimes judges believe that there's automatic respect, but I've learned that, you know, respect isn't automatic. It's something that you have to work at and that you have to gain. And so I try to run a very civil courtroom. You won't see me embarrassing any of the litigants or the lawyers in court in front of everyone. If there's something I'm concerned about, I'll bring the parties sidebar and we'll discuss it there. And I find if you just go in with the manner that this is going to be an even playing field for all, this is a courtroom of justice, you will be heard. This is your opportunity. This is your access to justice. And if you go in, I'm a fairly religious person, and you pray to God that you're going to make the right decisions based on the law and the facts as you have seen them. And because we don't have crystal balls, and you just hope that you hope and pray that you've made the right decision. And I really think that's all you can do.
Now, I know one of the missions you have as President Judge is to try to improve the image of the court.
Correct.
And you've got some different initiatives that you're trying to work on there. One is just being with us today to talk to people. How do you think judges are perceived in the community? And do you have any personal experiences with just how you're viewed in the community that you might want to share?
Well, I think judges generally are perceived as not being really human. You know, they sit on the bench, they sit up high, they make decisions that impact, and they don't really think about what they're doing. They don't really live in the community and know. But, you know, I think by being a part of the community, going out in the community, engaging with the community, they learn that judges really are human. We're the same person as you or anyone else. We have the same issues and the concerns. We deal with the same things. You know, I have to clean my house. I have to go food shopping. I have to cook. You know, I can think of a story when I was actually going food shopping in one of the community food supermarkets, standing in the deli line, and someone saw me and they said, "Judge, what are you doing here?" And I looked and I said, "Well, I have to eat just like you do." And they kind of laughed because I think they believe that we have servants that just hand all these things to us and we don't have to do anything further. I can think of another experience at one of the video stores. I went into the local video store to rent a movie. And I got to the counter and I couldn't find my card, so I took out my driver's license so they could look at the account number. An individual at the counter looked up. He said, "Judge, you don't remember me?" And I looked again. I said, "No." He said, "Remember, you gave me a sentence of probation or something or other, and look, see, I'm doing so well, you know, and Judge, I need to talk to you because I want to go into the service and I need to finish this probation up." I said, "Okay." And I'm thinking, okay, now I've given you my address. But it was he was a good kid. And I said, "Okay, I can't talk to you about your case. Contact your lawyer and he'll give you the information that you need." But, you know, it was another awakening about, you know, how much access of information people have, but that there are some people that you help and who are appreciative of what you do for them. You can make a difference in the lives of other individuals.
That's all the time we have today. I want to thank you, Judge, for joining in. You've been listening to President Judge Sheila Wood Skipper of the Philadelphia 1st Judicial District, the Court of Common Pleas. I'm David Travaskis, an adjunct professor in the Community College of Philadelphia's paralegal program, and I want to thank all of you for watching us here on the Perspectives series of the Fox Rothschild Center for Law and Society here on CCP TV. We will see you in the future on CCP TV.